Pomeriggio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to give a special thanks to Selena Cooper, who invited me to be able to share with you on this performance. Isn't this a great conference? I'm sorry that I'm not there in person for you to be with you in this eternal city. That's so much fun, and I love going to, but this weekend I was in Spain at a wedding. So enjoy yourself. I want to applaud all of you for being present here today when you come from such a wide variety of professionals, ranging from surgeons and nurses to students, administrators, people in research, education professionals. I marvel at how you take out the time from your busy lives to be here and show your desired value to keep learning and growing. So raise your hand and say yes, or put in yes chat if you want to be heard and respected at work. Raise your hand, say yes, or put a yes in the chat if you want to be part of a happy and collaborative team. And finally, raise your hand and say yes if you want better outcomes for those you serve.
Yes, a big yes from here.
What?
A big yes from here.
Imagine a workplace where you, your colleagues, and your patients are happy and well cared for. What is missing in healthcare? It's humanity, which means compassion and empathy and being responsible for our communication. We need to learn to be more compassionate with ourselves, our colleagues, and our patients. And you might be thinking, well, that sounds nice, but I'm already compassionate. That's why I went into healthcare to begin with. But it's an unfortunate fact that we're all overworked and feel exhausted at times and don't realize that although we think we're saying and doing the right thing, there are times when it's interpreted the wrong way. We may feel we didn't sleep well at night, or we're hungry. Maybe we're worried about something in our personal life. We're busy and have no time to go that extra mile. So sometimes we may snap back at people who we find difficult. During this presentation, I'm going to review some strategies, tactics, and essential elements to compassionate communication. In the short amount of time we have, we can't cover it all. I recognize there are so many aspects to this. If I don't mention what's important to you or a vital aspect you run up against, please send me an email at karen@khdr.org and let me know what it is. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about myself and my background and why I do what I do. As you heard, my name is Dr. Karen Rigamonti. I'm a physician. I did a residency first in internal medicine and later in anesthesiology. I'm the mother of 3 incredible children, Ava, Luigi, and Alessandra. And I'm the lucky grandmother of 2 amazingly active and inquisitive grandchildren, Dahlia and Julia. I earned an MBA and ran a healthcare company. I have a MPH also and serve on 3 nonprofit boards. Life is good and I am blessed. On the first day of my medical residency, I met my future by life. 37 years ago, an obstetrician did not listen to me and made a wrong diagnosis. He sent me home without heeding my concerns. That evening, I went into premature labor and delivered my son Luigi at 25 weeks gestation. Luigi developed multiple complications, becoming severely and permanently disabled. Today, he's blind, autistic, and extremely intellectually impaired and in need of 24-hour supervision. This event changed my life journey, and I became a family caregiver. But time is a great healer. With much personal work, I accepted the difficult circumstances in my life and figured out how to find joy every day. I now advocate for patients and family caregivers, nurses, and physicians. I work to improve our workplace culture, our thoughts, our attitudes, our behaviors, and our beliefs. In the coming few minutes, I'll share with you stories that will reveal how compassion transforms the entire experience of a patient, their family, or your colleagues. Being more compassionate doesn't have to wear you out or take up more of your time. When you and your team offer compassion, you actually make a lasting impression, and it contributes to quality outcomes. Picture the discomfort of entering a fancy restaurant one evening that has a piano player. The manager takes one look at you with your 4-year-old toddler and sees you looking really unhappy. This was me years ago. In the course of the evening, Luigi silently approached the piano and put his head against the instrument so that he could feel the vibrations to the amazement of both the piano player and the delight of the customers. When it was time to leave, the same manager who had been grumbling at me now graciously smiled and said, "Please come back again soon." He had compassionately seen my son finally as a human being belonging and deserving the same food experience as everyone else. So, listening for inclusive communication is critical to produce effective healthcare. When we don't listen, we're not interacting, it's not considered wise. We are inefficient and we leave people with resentment. Soon after Luigi's birth, the ICU staff knew both patients were physicians. And began formulating plans for my son with my husband. And my husband passionately spoke up for me and said, "Listen, everybody, I'm a brain surgeon. My wife's trained in internal medicine. It's she who understands heart and lungs. She's the responsible party when it comes to making decisions for our son." I was so grateful to him. You might think that kindness and compassion are the same thing. They're not. When we can be kind, and we might never take the time to have a meaningful interaction with the patient. We may be interacting in accordance with our well-rehearsed checklist rather than taking time to have a meaningful relationship and really finding out about the patient. And they do pick up on this. I have occasionally felt while undergoing a procedure that everything seems picture perfect on the surface. But as the patient, it feels as if I've been objectified and no one has seen me or cared about me, the patient, the human being. So visualize that you're working and you're walking out of a store and in the pouring rain, and you're making your way, struggling to hold the umbrella up, your package of shoes you just bought, your handbag, and your child's hand so he would not dart in front of a moving car in the parking lot. That was us when a woman approached me and said compassionately, "Can I help you with your packages or guide your son? I work with special needs children." I was so grateful to have a helping hand by someone who understood the challenges, and rather than assume, she asked how she could be of assistance. Another time, when dining out with my young grandchildren, it was nice to have the waitress kindly take my order, but it felt much more compassionate when one waitress said to me, "I see you're with very young children. Would it be helpful to bring their food out early? Would they like their drink in a covered cup?" Compassionate acts leave us feeling that with totally different, and we never forget them. When my son Luigi was 8 years old and my husband was out of town, he emergently required hospitalization for a respiratory viral infection. A friend picked up my daughter after school and kept her overnight. A lovely nurse admitted Luigi that evening and chatted with me. In the morning, while making rounds, as if reading my mind, she said to me, I need to write my notes, and write my notes in his room instead of at the front desk. I thought, oh my God. And I absolutely took her up on that. She said, it'll take me an hour and I'll stay and keep an eye on him so your son is safe. I was so grateful and knew that my son would be safe and I could be able to do what I needed to do. You see, he can't stay by himself. He can't navigate the room. He can't ask for help. I don't remember that nurse's name, but 30 years later, I still remember how relieved I felt by her simple, compassionate act. So what we find is when we inject humanity back into healthcare with compassionate communication, we all win because we're all on the same side to provide the best medical care to our patients while feeling valued, appreciated, and respected. I'm going to provide you with some strategies to be more compassionate in your communication. I'll also teach you what you might do if we mess up because we are human. Effective, compassionate communication is imperative as it generates caring experiences and quality results. So let's review the elements of an effective, compassionate communication amongst healthcare providers, patients, and their families. The first element is we need to develop our self-awareness. It is much harder to be compassionate with people when we have no awareness of our own needs, desires, and things that unravel us. We may communicate all the time, but it's through our thoughts, our attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, even our energy, our ability to be present, our body language, our facial expressions. There's so many ways. So whether intended or not, the impact we may communicate can affect future results positively or negatively, depending on how the recipient reviews it. We need to be conscious of the impact of our communication and be willing to take responsibility for it. In my experience, consciousness of the impact that our communication or action produces is an element often missing in our culture. We need to get better at reading our impact to be truly compassionate. When we're unaware of the impact of our communication, we can produce negative effect. Walking down a hallway without smiling or looking up at our colleagues or the visitors, we might give the impression that we don't like them. When people feel they're being viewed critically, they take it personally and negatively affect the environment. Another important element is listening. Listening to hear what another person is trying to say before reacting and planning your own retort. It's critical. To truly hear the other person, we need to be fully present. It's best to avoid assuming and ask our patients how they feel if we desire to understand their experience. So see them and listen to them. Notice everyone in the room and listen to everyone. We want to have them as allies to gain trust and collaboration before responding. We need to take the time. Notice the nonverbals, the eye contact, the facial expression, and the body language and words. If you really want to understand what people need and want, it may cost you a minute up front, but in the end, you save a lot of time later. And you also do that while enriching or saving a life. So when we take the time to be curious, we create dialogue and widen our perspective. Once on a family vacation, we were in a dinghy going to shore with our family. The other family's fraternal twins were the same age as my then 12-year-old daughter. The boy was staring at Luigi, who at the time was 22, shaking his head and self-stimulating. I could see that he was curious and his parents were embarrassed, although also curious for sure. My girls were annoyed their brother was being gawked at. Sensing everyone's discomfort, I asked the boy if he would like to know how to interact with my son. The secret, I said, was to sing a Disney song or a show of which he knew some. A few minutes later, he accompanied us, thrilled to be part of the action. By the time we reached shore, all the other children there already wanted to join in the fun. It was the first time in my son's life he was a celebrity, not avoided or stared at, but seen for his value and ability to contribute. It only took a moment to be inclusive, putting everyone at ease. My compassion to the boy had modeled for him and the others to have compassion for my son and see him as a vibrant member of society, valued. We all have had a blast building such beautiful memories that will last forever. Conflict resolution skills are also vital. We all come across difficult patients and situations in life. There's an art of problem solving when conflicts do arise. I believe that patients feel and colleagues and families become difficult when there's poor communication and inadequate communication with compassion. So we need to be open because no one is right or perfect 100% of the time, which means the corollary. Other people's ideas are not wrong 100% of the time. Productive conflict means to agree on some aspect or another of a person's argument, even when we overall disagree. When we can agree on one issue, we build a foundation for creativity, wisdom, and insight, and improve outcomes. One tactic you might consider is to play a game and say, what I like about your whatever idea they say is, and say something genuine. And then what I also might consider, and now give what you think, because then they're more open-minded. I had a client with a child with special needs once who is battling with the school team, developing their daughter's next year plan. I was the extra pair of ears who could get everyone to take a breath. I explained what I heard each side say and what they seemed to want, and how that they seemed to be busy making assumptions as they stated their own points of view without listening for what their commonalities were and the same goals that they all shared. Once I clearly stated the similarities both parties had, they realized how close they were to a finished comprehensive plan that met all their requirements. We also need to empower people. Give everybody on your team the chance to genuinely participate and be listened to. When they take on personal accountability and responsibility, they can earn the appreciation and respect of their peers, feel valued, and strengthen the team. And by the way, teams should all include families and patients. When we feel people around us are being difficult, rather than taking things so personally, we can compassionately look at what's really going on and consider that. By alleviating someone else's pain, we also alleviate the cause of their obstinacy and feel better. Compassion produces happier, healthier providers and more engaged patients. We all err, but when we listen to understand what is being conveyed in words or behaviors, we can avoid mistakes and create trusting relationships. Difficult encounters will stop occurring, and we can have more energy to do our work. So another element is advocacy. It's learning how to take care of your needs with advocating for those in your charge or those in the greater community. In healthcare, it's not about telling a patient, this is what you have to do, but about discovering their desires, as there's always two choices, at least in any therapeutic plan, including one being not doing anything. Of course, if we can pin a patient down to their aspirations and couple those with our treatment recommendations, a patient is much more likely to comply. An example is taking medicine. If you add this will increase the likelihood of your seeing your child graduate, or your child get married, or even becoming a grandparent. They're much more likely to want to do what you ask. Another example of advocating is once when I was suggesting to my son's educational team that he have a career goal and how they might best implement that for the team, responded to me saying they couldn't possibly do that because then there wouldn't be enough aides in the classroom for the other children. I readily agreed with them. I said, of course not. You should have all of the children in the whole class have the same thing as my son, because they'll all benefit from this. The school agreed, and a few weeks later, I discovered lots of classes were following the same plan. If you want results, it's better to advocate for more than just yourself. We are pulled in so many directions, draining our energy. The literature is filled with evidence that poor communication is the most significant contributor to the occurrence of adverse events. Either critical information is not communicated, or if communicated, it's not heard and understood. When we are empathic, we enhance the quality of relationships. We become more engaged and we enjoy our work much more. But no matter how hard we try or how much we learn about communication, we are human and we're going to make mistakes. Compassionate communication will eliminate many of those mishaps. For example, without awareness of the impact of our words or our actions, we might make a mistake or offend someone. In these situations, we need to strive to become more conscious of our impact and take responsibility for it and apologize when needed. Let's take a couple minutes to look at other situations where we might need to use an apology in healthcare. We might take offense. We might have said something to someone we didn't mean to do and not conveyed information well. And if we neglect trying to help them, they feel even more stressed and more overburdened. So when else we need to offer an apology? We may have made a mistake in the procedure. We may have said something that was taken offensively. Other times, we may have had a patient that suffered a bad outcome, even though we forewarned the patient and the family that a percentage of patients might develop such a complication. So now that we know when we might need to use an apology, let's look at how to provide an effective apology. According to a recent study, victims may assume that no apology was offered if they didn't hear the component they're waiting to hear. So, and it's important to them. So whatever element you're waiting to, if it's not included, you think you didn't hear an apology. So the first element or component is expressing regret. 40% of people want to hear, "I'm sorry." Second is accepting responsibility. 30% of people want to hear, "I was wrong." 10% of people want to be asked, "What can I do to make it right?" and show that you're making restitution. 10% also want to hear that you're willing to revise the plan and say what's going to be different in the future going forward. And finally, only 3% want to hear that you're requesting forgiveness. But if they don't hear, "Will you please forgive me?" they think they haven't been given an apology. So instead of just saying, "I'm sorry," which is remedial for apology, missing energy and emotion, we should say such things as, "I am truly sorry, as I did not intend to upset you or harm you, and I will reflect for sure on whatever is needed to rectify that so it doesn't happen again. Will you please forgive me?" A sincere and authentic apology offers the offended person the ability to feel heard and understood. Furthermore, it convinces them that you will not do it again, providing an avenue to mend the relationship. Patients, families, and colleagues will respond to us with kindness and respect when we apologize. However, may have caused harm, hurts us as we went into the profession to be of service, of support, and of help to others. But to own our mistakes requires a lot of confidence because feeling vulnerable can be terrifying. Most of us never learned how to apologize in earnest as adults. It takes courage to access our authentic force. And there's one rule of thumb when it comes to apologies. Never ruin a good apology with an excuse. So in conclusion, poor communication too often contributes to adverse events. Empathy enhances communication. Compassion deepens our relationships. When we relate better with our patients and colleagues, we become more conscious of our impact and become more aware of our errors. More empathy and compassion enhance collaboration between providers, patients, and their caregivers, leading to safer practice, better outcomes, and greater loyalty. Patients and family members' satisfaction increases, staff engagement swells, burnout declines, and reputation flourishes. And of course, an apology is needed to repair any damage or potential damage in a relationship. But the most incredible thing is that if you get all this right, and you have a miracle that we always notice, financial success will also follow. So thank you so much for doing the work you do, for being a great audience, and knowing that you too can be instrumental in making a happier healthier culture. If you want to learn more about creating high performance, highly compassionate teams with exceptional patient outcomes, connect with me at my website, drkaren.org, or email me at karen@khdr.org. I see we have a little bit of time, and I'd love to answer any questions if you have any.